observant person. It's not that I'm nosy. Well, maybe just a little. But there's always something interesting going on here in my little corner that it's impossible not to notice. My house is perfectly located on the street, you know. From my living room window, I can practically see the whole street, and you have no idea how many stories I've witnessed from here. It was a Tuesday in October, I remember well, because the leaves were that beautiful golden color that only the autumn in Illinois can create. The cold wind was starting to show up, and I was sitting in my favorite armchair, sipping chamomile tea, watching people come back from work. You know how it is. After you hit 60, you develop this habit of watching life go by from the window. Don't judge an old lady. I was there, enjoying the last bit of the afternoon, when I saw my neighbor Tom Henderson coming home from work. Guys, Tom is that kind of man that any woman would find charming. Even in his mid-50s, he still has that old-time movie heartthrob vibe. Tall, always well-dressed in his office suits, his gray hair slicked back. A real gentleman, you know. He's been married to Martha for about 25 years, a sweet woman who always greeted me when she walked by with Buddy, their golden retriever. Martha was always a bit shy, one of those people who preferred staying home tending to the garden than socializing around the neighborhood. He parked his gray Honda Accord in the garage, waved at me through the window. He was always that polite, and went inside. Up until then, everything was normal, same old routine. It was a red BMW, one of those cars that really catches your eye. You know, expensive, well-kept, definitely not the kind of car that Martha would drive. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph! It was a black, tight-fitting dress that hugged all her curves in a way that even I, a 72-year-old lady, was impressed. My heart was racing, you have no idea. Well, where was Martha? There was no sign of her anywhere. A beautiful young woman entering a married man's house with her own key, at night, while the wife wasn't around. Well, you don't need to be a genius to put two and two together, right? Guys, I couldn't sleep that night. I was tossing and turning in bed, thinking about what I had just witnessed. Could Tom, that man who always seemed so upright, so family-oriented, be having an affair? And poor Martha. Did she know? Was she away? Had they fought? Because, let's be honest, these things always happen in soap operas and movies. But when it happens in real life, right under our noses, it's enough to leave anyone intrigued. I don't know, more satisfied? Or maybe it was just my imagination. I had to know if that was a one-time event or if it was going to happen again. Because, guys, if it was a pattern, then I'd be sure something was going on. She entered the house, stayed for about 40 minutes again, and then left. Tom appeared at the door to say goodbye. They exchanged a few words. I tried to lip read, but I'm not good at it. And she left. Maybe Tom and Martha had separated, and he didn't want the neighborhood to know yet. Maybe she had gone away to take care of a sick relative. Or maybe, and this was the theory that haunted me the most, maybe Tom was living a double life, cheating on poor Martha with this stunning woman. I was in my observation spot, with a hot cup of coffee to keep me warm, when the BMW appeared again. This time, the woman had on a beige wool coat over what looked like another elegant dress. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt strange, you know? Like when you have a word on the tip of your tongue but can't quite remember it. The only thing I knew for sure was that something very strange was happening at the Henderson house, and I was determined to find out what it was. And I was going to get to the bottom of this story, even if it was the last thing I did. After those first 3 days of watching the mysterious meetings, I kind of turned into a private detective here in the neighborhood. I'm not joking. I started mentally documenting everything I saw, creating a sort of timeline of the events. It was Thursday, and the weather was cloudy, with that typical chilly October air in Chicago. I had spent the whole day anxious, counting the hours until 7:30 in the evening. Think that's an exaggeration? Well, when you're retired and life gets a little dull, any mystery turns into the event of the century. Believe me. Exactly on time. And when I say exactly, I mean this woman had the precision of a Swiss watch. There it was, the red BMW parking in the same spot as always. This time, I was ready. I even grabbed some old binoculars from my late husband Harold to better observe the details. The woman got out of the car and, wow. What a look! An emerald green dress that highlighted her eyes, hair pinned in an elegant bun, and this time she was carrying 2 bags. 2! That immediately caught my attention. On the other days, it was always just 1 bag. She entered the house with the same smoothness as always, using that mysterious key that intrigued me so much. How the heck did a stranger have a key to the Hendersons' house? That wasn't normal, folks. Definitely not normal. This time, I timed it exactly. She stayed inside for exactly 37 minutes. 37 minutes! And when she left, she was only carrying 1 bag. Where did the other one go? What had she done in there? My imagination was running wild. Tom appeared at the door as always. But this time I could see they talked a little longer before she left. From the gestures I could catch, it seemed like a cordial conversation, even affectionate. He even touched her arm when he said goodbye, a gesture that made my heart race. That definitely didn't seem like a purely, how can I say, professional relationship. On Friday, I was so anxious I couldn't even eat properly all day. When the time came, there I was, in my position, binoculars in hand, ready for another episode of this real-life soap opera unfolding right in front of me. And she came, of course. Red BMW, same military precision. This time with a black dress different from the first. This one was more understated but still elegant. And she brought those bags again. Always those mysterious bags. But then, folks, something happened that made me even more intrigued. While she was inside, a police car passed slowly down the street. Normal. It happens all the time. But what caught my attention was that the cop slowed down when he passed in front of Tom's house, looked at the BMW parked there, and kept going. Did they know something? Had other neighbors noticed this strange pattern and reported any suspicions? Or was I just being too paranoid? When the woman left, she seemed a little more rushed this time. She didn't chat at the door with Tom, just waved quickly and got in the car. I thought it was strange, but maybe it was just my impression. The weekend passed slowly. Saturday and Sunday with no suspicious activity. Tom appeared a few times in the garden, tending to the plants, washing the car, normal weekend things. But Martha? Not a sign of her. It had been an entire week since I'd seen my neighbor, and that was starting to genuinely worry me. Was she sick? Had she traveled? Or was it? And this possibility gave me chills. Had she discovered her husband's affair and left? Poor Martha. Always so sweet and reserved. On the following Monday, I was determined to find more details. I made a plan. I was going to pretend I was going to the post office in the late afternoon and pass by the Hendersons' house to try to pick up some information. Around 5 in the afternoon, I left home with a letter in hand, which didn't even need to be posted, but it was my alibi, and walked slowly down Maple Street. When I passed in front of the Blue House, I paid attention to every detail. The garden was well kept, so Tom was definitely keeping up with his routine. The living room curtains were closed, but I could see a sliver of light inside. His Honda was in the garage. Everything seemed normal on the outside, but I knew appearances could be deceiving. On my way back, I ran into the neighbor from the house next to the Hendersons, Mrs. Eleanor. Eleanor is one of those people who knows everything that's going on in the neighborhood, so I decided to probe a little. "Hi, Eleanor. How are you, dear?" "Hi, Ruth. I'm good, thank God." "And you?" "I'm great. Listen, have you seen Martha lately? It's been a while since I've run into her on the street." Eleanor frowned and lowered her voice. "Now that you mention it, it's actually been a few days since I've seen her. I thought maybe she had traveled or something like that." I went back home more intrigued than ever. If even Eleanor had noticed, it meant other neighbors might be watching too. Was Tom not being discreet enough? Or did he simply not care about what others would think? She was wearing a beautiful purple dress, and when the streetlight illuminated her face, I had that feeling of familiarity again, stronger this time. There was something in those features, in the way she walked, that stirred some distant memory in my mind. This time she stayed a little longer, 45 minutes. When she left, Tom went up to the car with her. They talked for a bit through the driver's window, and he even leaned in to kiss her on the cheek. A kiss on the cheek. That was more intimate than anything I had witnessed before. Poor Martha. Where could she be? Did she know? Was she suffering in silence? She got out of the car, a light blue dress this time, and walked towards the house. My God, where had I seen those eyes before? The feeling of familiarity was so strong that I almost said, "I know you from somewhere?" But I controlled myself, of course. I mentally reviewed family photos, church events, neighborhood meetings, everything I could remember from the past few years. The question that wouldn't leave my mind was, who is this mysterious woman, and why does she seem so familiar to me? Before, I used to watch my afternoon soaps, do crossword puzzles, call my friends. But now I was counting the hours until 7:30 at night, planning my observation position, thinking of strategies to find out more about that woman. Instead of staying in the living room window, I went upstairs to the second-floor bedroom, which has an even better view of the street. From there I could see not only the front of Tom's house, but also a little bit of the side yard. But from upstairs I saw something I hadn't noticed before. When she entered the house, the lights that turned on weren't just in the living room. I saw a light in the kitchen too, and after a few minutes, light in what seemed to be Tom's office. What kind of intimate visit needs to use the office, huh? I don't know. In the living room or the bedroom? Why the office? What the heck were they doing in there? Papers? What kind of lover takes papers to a rendezvous? If no one answered, at least I'd confirm that she really wasn't home. Nobody's toys on the lawn, no clothes on the line. Nothing indicating anyone had been living there recently. I was at the upstairs window with the binoculars when I saw the woman get out of the car. This time, when the streetlight lit up her face, something clicked in my mind. Those eyes. That face shape. My God, she reminded me of someone. She looked directly at my window and saw me with the binoculars. But I'm sure she saw me. Absolutely sure. This time, I stayed at the living room window without binoculars, trying to appear casual. When the BMW arrived, my heart skipped a beat. The woman got out of the car, a burgundy dress, very sophisticated, and before entering the house, she looked directly at my window and waved. If she was really having a secret affair with Tom, Shouldn't she be bothered by a nosy neighbor? Why was she being so friendly? Wedding photos, birthday parties, graduations, church events, family reunions. Looking for any face that might match that mysterious woman. It was a photo from about 10 years ago, taken in the Hendersons' backyard during a summer barbecue they organized for the neighborhood. In the photo, Tom and Martha were smiling next to Harold and me, and in the background, there was a young woman, out of focus, but with something familiar about her. The woman must have been in her early 20s at the time, with shorter, darker hair. But there was something in her facial features. My God, could it be? On Monday, I was determined to uncover the truth. I couldn't live with that curiosity eating me up from the inside anymore. I needed answers, and I needed them soon. It was a risky plan, but I couldn't stand the uncertainty anymore. And then, just as I passed in front of the Hendersons' house, the door opened. But there was something more in those eyes. A sweetness, a familiarity that made me even more confused. Martha was going through a tough time? What kind of tough time? And why hadn't Tom told me anything? Tom walked up to where we were, and I could see he also seemed a little uncomfortable. "Ruth, it's good to see you. How are you?" "Needing some special care right now," Tom replied vaguely. "Sarah has been a big help with everything," Tom said, looking at her with an expression of gratitude, brotherly affection. Was Martha sick? What kind of illness required special care that kept her from appearing in public? And why was Sarah helping? Who was Sarah, after all? I tried several combinations, but couldn't find anything that gave me a clue about who Sarah was or what was happening with Martha. The age matched, but who was she to be at the Hendersons' barbecue a decade ago? Would it be possible that Tom had a daughter from a previous relationship that I never knew about? That would explain the familiarity between them, the key to the house, the responsibility of taking care of the sick Martha. But if that were the case, why all the mystery? Why did she only come at night? Why had Tom never mentioned a daughter? On Wednesday night, when the BMW arrived, Sarah was wearing a beautiful navy blue dress. I paid attention to every detail of the interaction between her and Tom. This time, armed with my new theory, everything seemed to make more sense. The way Tom greeted her was paternal, protective. The way she entered the house was that of someone who knew every corner of the place. And when they spoke at the goodbye, there was an intimacy that wasn't romantic. It was familial. But if she was really his daughter, why had I never known? In 20 years of being the Hendersons' neighbor, how had this information never come to me? On Thursday, I decided to be more direct. When I saw Tom arriving home from work, I went up to him before he entered the house. "Tom, sorry to bother you. I met Sarah yesterday. What a lovely woman." He smiled, but I noticed a tension in his shoulders. "Yeah, she really is special. She seems so familiar. I have this impression that I've seen her somewhere before." Tom looked at me for a few seconds, as if deciding how much to reveal. "It's possible. She used to come here when she was younger." Bingo. My theory was right. "Ah, I see. She is?" "Well, it's complicated, Ruth. Martha's situation is delicate, and Sarah has been an angel helping with everything. I'd prefer not to go into details right now, if you don't mind." He was clearly uncomfortable, so I didn't push further. But now I was certain Sarah had some family connection to them. The puzzle piece was almost fitting. That night when Sarah arrived, I felt like I was finally seeing the situation clearly. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't anything sordid or scandalous. It was a family dealing with a difficult situation the best way they could. But there were still gaps in the story. Why all the mystery? Why did Sarah only come at night? Why did Tom seem so reluctant to talk about the situation? And the most important question, where exactly was Martha? And what was really wrong with her health? I was close to discovering the full truth. Very close. I could feel it. Guys, you won't believe how I uncovered the truth about this whole thing. It happened in such an unexpected, simple way that, when it happened, I felt like the most foolish person in the world for imagining so many complicated things. It was a Friday morning, cold and rainy, typical of late October in Chicago. I was in the kitchen making my coffee when I heard Buddy barking. Buddy! It had been 2 weeks since I'd heard that dog, and suddenly there he was, barking in the Hendersons' backyard as if nothing had happened. I rushed to the living room window and saw Martha, in the backyard, playing with Buddy under a tree. She was wearing a robe and looked fragile, thinner than I remembered, with more gray in her hair, but definitely alive and well. My first instinct was to run out there and greet her, but something made me hesitate. If she wanted to talk, she would have appeared in front of the house, right? Maybe there was a reason she was staying discreet. But at least now I knew that Martha was okay. She was at home, and that was an immense relief. All those dark theories I'd created in my head about her discovering the affair and running away, or worse, were completely unfounded. Later, around 2 in the afternoon, something happened that changed everything. I was in the front garden tidying up the last of the autumn flowers when I saw Tom coming home earlier than usual. That was unusual. He always arrived precisely at 6:30. But what caught my attention even more was that a few minutes later, the red BMW parked in front of the house. Broad daylight. For the first time in 2 weeks, Sarah had come during the day. I pretended to be very focused on my plants, but I was paying attention to every movement. Sarah got out of the car carrying several bags, more than usual, and a small suitcase. A suitcase. Tom went out to greet her, and they spoke briefly before entering the house together. There was an urgency in the air that I couldn't identify. By about 4 in the afternoon, my curiosity was killing me. I decided to use my old excuse of going to the post office and pass by the Hendersons' house to see if I could catch any information. When I passed in front of the house, I heard voices coming from the backyard. Female voices. Sarah and Martha were talking. I could distinguish the 2 voices, though I couldn't understand what they were saying. This left me even more confused. If Martha was well enough to talk with Sarah in the backyard, why wasn't she appearing to the neighbors? Why all this mystery? That's when I made my second big investigative move of the week. I decided to take a walk down the street behind the Hendersons' house, the one that led to the backyard. From there, maybe I could see something without being seen. I walked down Oak Avenue, the parallel street, and found the spot where I could see the Hendersons' backyard through a small gap in the fence. What I saw from there left me completely stunned. Martha was sitting in a garden chair with a blanket over her legs, while Sarah was hanging clothes on the clothesline. Men's clothes, dress shirts, pants, things that clearly belonged to Tom. But that wasn't all. Sarah moved around that backyard as if she owned the place. She fed Buddy, watered some plants, arranged some patio furniture. And Martha watched everything with a smile on her face, as if she were supervising the household chores. That made no sense with any of the theories I had before. Why would a lover be doing household chores? Why would Martha be smiling and watching if she were being cheated on? I went back home with my head spinning. There was definitely something I was missing, some crucial piece of the puzzle that would make everything clear. At night, when the usual meeting time came, 7:30 on the dot, I was more curious than ever. But this time, something different happened. The BMW didn't arrive. 7:30 passed, 8 o'clock, 8:30. No red BMW. For the first time in 2 weeks, Sarah didn't show up at her usual time. Around 9 at night, I was starting to think she wasn't coming when I heard a door slam. I ran to the window and saw Sarah coming out of the Hendersons' house. She had been inside all this time. But here's the most surprising part. Instead of going straight to the BMW, she walked to my door and rang the bell. Guys, I almost had a heart attack. What the heck did Sarah want with me? I opened the door, trying to seem casual, as if I hadn't spent 2 weeks spying on her life. Hi, Ruth. Sorry to bother you so late. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Sure, dear. Come in, please. Sarah entered my living room, looked around with interest, and sat on the couch. Up close, I could see she looked tired, but there was a determined expression on her face. Ruth, I know you've been curious about my visits to Tom's house, she began, getting straight to the point. I felt my face turn red. Well, it's just that... She smiled gently. It's okay. It's natural to be curious when there are changes in the neighborhood routine. And I imagine you've come up with some interesting theories about what's going on. To be honest, I was worried about Martha. It's been so long since I've seen her. And you were right to be concerned. Martha really did need special care. Sarah took a deep breath, as if preparing to make an important revelation. Ruth, I'm Sarah Henderson, Tom's daughter. Tom's daughter! I knew it. My theory was right. But I've been living in Seattle for 15 years, she continued. I came back home because Martha was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's. The word hit my chest like a punch. The doctor recommended she keep a calm routine, without too much stress or sudden changes. Tom didn't want the neighbors to worry or start treating her differently. So we decided to keep the situation private for now. Everything started to make sense. Martha wasn't missing or being mistreated. She was being cared for, protected. I come every night after work to help with household chores, prepare meals for the next day, organize her medication. Tom works all day and gets exhausted taking care of her alone. But why only at night? I asked. Because during the day I work. I managed to get a temporary job here in Chicago to be close to them for a few months. I always come after 7:30 because that's when I finish my shift. Sarah explained that Martha had good days and bad days. On good days, she could stay in the yard, play with Buddy, even help with small household tasks. On bad days, she preferred to stay inside, resting. Those bags you must have noticed are special foods for her diet, medication, special cleaning products. Everything an Alzheimer's patient needs. And why do you have a key to the house? Sarah smiled. Because it's my house, Ruth. I grew up in that house. Tom is my father. And Martha raised me since I was 5 years old, when my biological mother passed away. She's my mother in every sense that matters. Tears began to roll down my face. What a beautiful and sad story at the same time. I was working in Seattle building my career when Tom called me and told me about the diagnosis. I didn't think twice. I quit my job, packed up my life, and came back home to help take care of the woman who raised me. That's why you only came at night. You were working during the day. Exactly. And I always bring Dad's lunch ready for the next day because he leaves early for work and doesn't have time to prepare anything in the morning. Guys, I felt like the most foolish and embarrassed person in the world. 2 weeks imagining scandal, betrayal, dark mystery, when in fact, I had been witnessing one of the most beautiful family love stories I've ever seen in my life. Sarah, I'm so sorry for being so intrusive. You don't need to apologize, Ruth. Actually, it's comforting to know that there are neighbors who care enough to notice when something feels different. Sarah told me she decided to speak with me because she noticed my genuine concern, and she thought I deserved to know the truth. Besides, she said with a mischievous smile, Tom told me you've always been a wonderful neighbor, and Martha has always liked you a lot. When she's having one of her good days, I'm sure she'd love to have a visit from you. Can you imagine how relieved and embarrassed I felt? Relieved because there was no sordid situation happening. Embarrassed because I spent 2 weeks creating conspiracy theories about a family that was just trying to deal with a difficult medical situation as dignified as possible. On the following Saturday, Martha had one of her good days, and Sarah brought her to the front garden. I took the opportunity to go greet them, brought some flowers from my garden, and we spent a lovely afternoon chatting about everyday things. Martha was a little frailer, sometimes forgetting a few words, but still the sweet, beloved neighbor I'd always known. And Sarah? Sarah was simply wonderful. Smart, caring, dedicated. A daughter any parent would be proud to have. So, folks, that was my great amateur detective adventure here in the neighborhood. In the end, I learned a valuable lesson about not judging situations by appearances, and about how family love can manifest in ways we don't always understand immediately. And you? Have you ever been in a similar situation? Ever jumped to conclusions about something that seemed suspicious? Tell me in the comments. I love knowing I'm not the only curious one in the world. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because I have many more stories from what I see here behind my curtains to share with you. And the next one is about that strange couple that moved into the corner house. You won't believe what I discovered about them. Until next time, folks. And remember, things aren't always what they seem.